Tēnā rā koutou whānau mā. Nau mai te koanga, nau mai hara mai ki tēnei whakāturanga whakaputa o te puka puka Power to Win, nā Lyndy McIntyre. Te mihi tuatahi, i ngā wā katoa te tino mihi, ki ngā mātua tuturu, ko rangi nui e tūnei, ko papatua nuku e takato nei, tēnā kōrua. I te whare e tūnei, ko te ara whānui o te ao, hei whakaruruhau i a tātou i te rangi nei, tēnā koe. E te hunga mate o te wā, ko Kingi Tūheitia, ko Jane McAlevey, ko Tortuga, haere atu ki te whenua tapu o tātou tīpuna. Apiti hono tātai hono rātou, te hunga mate ki a rātou, tātou, te hunga ore ki a tātou. E te mana whenua o te papai oia, tini whetū ki te rangi, ko rangi tāne ki te whenua, i te kaituhi o tēnei puka puka. O te hitori, o te pei ora o Aotearoa, ko Lyndy, tēnā koe. I te kai whakarite o tēnei whakāturanga, ko Dion, tēnā koe. E ngā kanohi hau, ngā hoa tata, i te whānau o ngā uni anō o tēnei rohe, tēnā koutou, ko Jon Pawson toku ingoa, huri au no Ngāti Parau. I kai whakahaere e te uni anō e tū, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. And we have a waiata from the Brazen Hussies. Kia ora.
We're Brazen Hussies and we don't give a damn. We're loud, we're raucous and we're fighting for our rights and our sex and for fun and we're strong. Men call us names to be nasty and rude like lesbian, men hate a bitch and prostitute. What a laugh, 'cause our half of it's true. This prejudicial image of our sex must die. From centuries of silence we are screaming into action. We're Brazen Hussies and we don't give a damn. We're loud, we're raucous and we're fighting for our rights and our sex and for fun and we're strong.
This song is by Sisters Unlimited, and it's one of our favourite songs to sing because it tells the story of women's place in history, and it's a story that hasn't always been told.
We were there, womankind beheld the earth. We were there, men beside us at our birth, and the world was made for sharing, equal giving, equal caring, learning, growing, doing, daring. We were there, friend and mother, sister, lover. We were there. We were there throughout each changing century. We were there, but still there's man-made history. For the history books describe the men who fought, how many died, hand in hand and side by side. We were there, friend and mother, sister, lover. We were there. We were there through every strife, through every war. We were there, wondering what we're struggling for, wondering when our time would come. Would brothers, sisters fight as one, or must we stand alone? We were there, friend and mother, sister, lover. We were there. We are here, though the way is long before us. We are here, and the world cannot ignore us.
Okay, so our next song is one of two special adaptations that we are going to sing this afternoon. Adaptations of originals by the creation of the living wage activists used very, very early in the living wage movement. Their first they went public with these songs at the Regional Wellington Campaign Lodge 2012. It was actually attended by some people here in Palmerston North, so if you were there, please join in. Actually, everyone join in. So we are now going to sing an adaptation of a gospel song, This Little Light of Mine. It was an anthem in the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1950s and 60s. It is now titled, We'll Get the Living Wage. And you can all do this if you like, if you remember.
We'll get the living wage with our communities. We'll get the living wage with the unions, faith groups too. We'll get the living wage. We're gonna make it ours, make it yours, make it mine, make it ours. They should pay the living wage to all their workers, contractors too, security and cleaners, to get the living wage. This is what we'll do, agitate, organise, sing this song. From Cape Leanna to Bluff, we'll fight for the living wage. For the workers in the world, we'll fight for the living wage. Never give up till we win. So this is what we'll do, agitate, organise, sing this song. We'll get the living wage with our communities. We'll get the living wage with the unions, faith groups too. We'll get the living wage. We're gonna make it ours, make it yours, make it mine, make it ours.
So tēnā koutou katoa, nā mai haere mai. Good afternoon everyone. Kia ora. I'm Dion Martin on behalf of Unions Manawatū as Co-Convenor, and our other Co-Convenor, Gina Williams, is down the back there. Gina. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Manawatū book launch of Power to Win, the story of the living wage movement in Aotearoa New Zealand by Lyndy McIntyre. Saturday the 31st of August 2024, the mezzanine floor of the Palmerston North City Library. Our co-hosts are, this afternoon, the publisher, Otago University Press. Big shout out to Louisa, and Elise is here, employee of Louisa at the book your Bruce Mackenzie bookshop. Sorry, the publisher is Otago University Press, and it's Meg has been the person, the coordinator there. Bruce Mackenzie bookshop, Palmerston City Library. Big shout out to Gina Avella, who has organised all this for us here at our space. The living wage movement, of course, Aotearoa New Zealand, and we have had some amazing support from MPR, that's Manawatū People's Radio, 999 AM, the community radio station for Manawatū and surrounding districts, and they are also recording our book launch today, and will broadcast it next Sunday, 8th of September at 5 p.m, and it will be available as a podcast through the MPR website, mpr.nz at that point. Big shout out to Hugh Dingwell, Content Coordinator for MPR, for organising this. Thank you, Hugh. Right, as we know, a boat is safe in port or a harbour, but a boat is not built to remain in port or harbour, to be built to be launched out onto the ocean or the high seas. The same way, a book is created while sitting at a desktop, but a book is not to remain there, it's to be launched out into bookshops, your hands, your bookshelves, your bedside tables, and to commence our book launch countdown towards the book launch, we have speakers from the three groups that make up the living wage movement. They are church or faith-based groups, community groups and unions. And together they are the movement, a diverse range of groups who share a common view that the living wage is a vital way to lift working people and their whānau from poverty and inequality. Lyndy's book is all about building alliances with diverse groups in order to have allies committed to the social justice values of the living wage movement of Aotearoa New Zealand. That is why the book is called Power to Win. In order to win and achieve our goal or purpose, we have to build power. And we build power by reaching out and building a broad movement that includes church, faith-based groups and community groups. So we're here to celebrate workers and their unions and our partners in faith groups and community. And guess what? We're here to sell books too. Okay? Right. I won't be commenting on each speaker after they've spoken. I'll just go and introduce each one so we keep up a pleasant pace. Takes us all the way to the book launch itself. Our first speaker hails from Wanganui, but it's in Palmy that he has made his mark, first as the coordinator of the Manawatū Tenants Union, and now for the last few years as an organiser for TEU, the Tertiary Education Union. And I really want you to have a chat later on because he is in the forefront at the moment at Massey University. TEU has initiated strike action at all 6 universities in New Zealand. Quite unprecedented, really. Have a chat to him later on.
Not just yet.
No, not just yet. But please welcome our union speaker, Ben Schmidt.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Dion. John opening. Great to have you with us. Mihi, always say, strong heart of unionism is in the Manawatū. John for opening and Brazen Hussies. I'm really hoping we can have you for your living wage waiata on the picket line if we need it soon. Really enjoyed that. Fantastic. So, acknowledging Lyndy, those who've gone before, living wage movement has been really successful in Aotearoa, especially getting wins in public employers, private sector as well. That idea that, as Dion talked about, as workers, we're not just in a community at work, we're part of faith groups, we're part of community groups, and we have power when we're organised. We need to go to where people are organised, whether that's at work, church, mosque, in a community group, in a sports club, is where we can organise to build power and win the living wage. There have been some wins in Palmerston North over the years after a long, hard struggle led by a lot of unionists, community groups and councillors like Lorna Johnson and Brent Barrett. The Palmerston North City Council finally voted to pay a living wage rate to staff and contractors a few years back. And we've also seen wins at other areas. At Massey University, graduate assistants work full-time, teaching, studying, while doing a PhD all on top of it. You can imagine they work far more than 40 hours a week far too often, but they had been stuck on the minimum wage and not a cent above for years at Massey University, which is absolutely disgraceful. A few years back in bargaining, as graduate assistants organised, joined the union, they showed up to meetings, they brought their mates, they took action, they finally won the living wage after years. So that was about a 12% pay rise for those graduate assistants last year. But that struggle still does continue for our private sector comrades, many of whom are paid below the living wage, and public employers. Universities, not everyone is paid well. We still have members at Massey University paid below a living wage, which is absolutely disgraceful. It would cost about $40,000 to pay a living wage to all union members at Massey. The Vice-Chancellor is then paid about over $500,000 a year, more than the Prime Minister. The university reported $680,000 worth of additions to furniture in their finances over the last financial year, and the senior leadership team collectively are paid about $4 million a year, but they cannot afford $40,000 for a living wage. So union members are in bargaining right now for that, and your support will be crucial to fight and win that campaign. It's something we see during that work. Living wage really brings people together. Higher paid members also feel really strongly about their comrades on lower wages. So this is something for all of us to work on. If you're an employer, pay your workers the living wage if you're not already. Once they're paid, get accredited. If you're a worker, join your union. And if you're already in your union, get involved, get engaged. Because unions are, as workers, it's not me as an organiser, it's all of you in your workplaces taking action. Even Tangi is an ETU member as well as an MP there. And Lyndy, we look forward to learning from your book. Members at Vic recently sent copies to every member of the senior management team as a wee gift for them to reflect on. Now it looks like they may be on the way to finally win the living wage after probably over a decade of fighting there. But on to the others. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Our next speaker was the first bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Palmerston North, which was created in 1980. After many years of service, he retired in 2012, but still continues to be active, an active member of the diocese. He's a respected writer and speaker at local, national, international level. He has spoken at several Unions Manawatū events over the years, including Workers' Memorial Day events. He came along to Palmerston North City Council meeting, spoke strongly in favour of PNCC retaining the Māori wards, which was won 15-0 in favour. He's been a strong advocate for the Catholic Church in New Zealand, having a social justice policy that insists all their workers in the diocese are paid the living wage. Please welcome our church faith-based speaker, Bishop Peter Cullinane.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Thank you, Dion. Folks, we all know that there's a lot of complicated stuff involved in determining what working conditions are just and what remuneration for work is just. Negotiations have to respect the rights and duties of all parties, the livelihoods of workers and those who depend on them, the different levels of participation in the processes of production, a business's circumstances, and of course the common good. All those factors matter. And a faith perspective, which is what I have been asked to offer a comment on, takes seriously all those factors. But a faith perspective goes deeper. It looks for the underlying reason for why all those factors matter. A reason is needed that is ultimately not dependent on variations in negotiating skills and leverage, on political alignments and government policies, ideologies and public opinion. All those are variables. A basis is needed that is more durable than those, more humane and more respectful of equality. That basis, according to the social teaching of the church I represent, is the dignity of the human person. And recently, Pope Francis put it like this, I quote, "Every person has a dignity that is grounded in the fact of being called into existence by God. This dignity," he says, "is not diminished by anything that can ever happen to us, or even by anything we ourselves might do. Unquote. Now that's worth another look, because we all know that there are aspects of human dignity that can be diminished and lost. For example, people can find themselves in living conditions that are not worthy of human beings. We can even forfeit or diminish our own moral dignity by morally bad choices. Lack of deep satisfaction, peace, joy, hope, perhaps due to illness or disability or pathological conditions, are deprivations of what human beings are made for. But my point is this: the duty and even the desire to overcome all those various forms of loss and deprivation can only come from an underlying dignity that is still there and can never be lost, no matter what the circumstances in which we find ourselves. And that undergirding dignity is the fact of having been called into existence by God, no matter why, when, how, or where. That's the ultimate foundation of every person's right, whether they're woman or man, healthy or disabled, native-born or immigrant, to participate in the social, cultural, and economic life of society, and of each one's right to contribute according to their capacity and to receive according to their need. That's where a faith-based perspective leads us. But reflecting on what it means to be a person has other practical consequences too. For example, as we all know, industry requires both labour and capital. Catholic social teaching has long held that those who contribute their labour contribute more of themselves than do those who only contribute capital. Yeah. And therefore, the fruits of industry actually belong more to those who've contributed their labour than to those who contributed only the capital. And that's also why Catholic social teaching has long since taken an interest in other forms of sharing in the ownership, the management, and the fruits of industry, such as cooperatives. Well, all of this is just part of a long-standing historical journey away from servant-master relationships to relationships that are more person-based. And that is an unfinished journey. And I presume that our presence at this book launch indicates our own commitment to that journey. Go well, kia kaha.
I had short versions for our next two speakers, but some people from out of the area may not know their next two speakers, so I'm going to give the longer version. So our first community speaker hails from solid northern English stock with a Lincolnshire father and an Irish mother. She grew up just outside Scunthorpe, a steel town with one of the worst football teams in the north. She trained in Liverpool, a much better football team, to be a veterinary surgeon, and worked in a number of clinics before arriving in Aotearoa 2001. 6 months later, she bought a dog, she bought a house, and told her husband, if you wanted to go back to England, divorce territory. After more time vetting, she went to teach at UCOL, and it was there she began to develop her dark side. She joined as a delegate with the TEU, Tertiary Education Union. She joined the Labour Party, was soon made chairwoman of the Palmerston North Labour Electorate Committee. She's a veteran campaigner for Labour, having both stood in and campaign management election. Even her car is red. As our first community speaker, please welcome our Labour Party councillor on the Palmerston North City Council, Lorna Johnson.
Thank you very much, Dion, I think. Kia ora koutou te whānau. It's lovely to be here today, and it's a real privilege and a pleasure, actually, to be with a group of like-minded people and those who are, I would consider to be fellow advocates for social and economic justice. So thank you for being here. I'm really glad that we can all come together to celebrate this important milestone, which is the launch of a book that is going to give us some insight and different perspective into the topic of the living wage, which resonates so deeply with all of us. In a world that's evolving very rapidly, where technology is reshaping economies and societies, the fundamental right to earn a wage that meets basic living standards remains a real challenge. And I think that, power to win shows us how that journey happened, how community groups, unions, and faith-based groups work together to bring the issue. It seems so familiar to us now, but the concept of a living wage was a new concept for people in Aotearoa New Zealand. So to bring the issue to the forefront, to make it a political issue, and to win the hearts and minds of people so that a pressure could be put on both political and public employers to bring a living wage and to understand the importance of it. When we think about the journey of the living wage, and when we read some of the stories, I'm sure, in the book, we'll understand the reality that there are hundreds of thousands of workers in New Zealand, and millions probably across the world, who still earn less than they need to provide for themselves and their families. And despite working tirelessly, they will find themselves wrestling with impossible choices: paying rent or groceries, paying for doctors or education for their children. And it's not just an economic issue, it's a matter of human dignity, equity and social justice. So, you might ask, well, why does the concept of a living wage matter? It matters because it directly impacts people's ability to lead fulfilling lives. It matters because it contributes to vibrant, sustainable communities. So when workers earn a wage that supports a decent standard of living, they can spend on local businesses, they can invest in their education and contribute to the economic and social fabric of their neighbourhoods. And in the opposite way, if you pay poverty wages, it leads to a cycle of despair, disempowerment, and ultimately societal fragmentation. So I hope that when we're reading the book and we're reading all the stories, and I'm sure that we will, we find hope and inspiration. And I think that that's been one of the very important aspects of this campaign, is that it's been a hopeful campaign. It hasn't been a negative type of a campaign at all, but it's been one that's inspired people through hope. It's always good to see examples from cities that have embraced the living wage and to see the results that happen because of that. If your company pays the living wage, it's been shown that you'll have lower employee turnover, reduced absenteeism, increased productivity, and enhanced community resilience. So it's not only the right thing to do, it's also a good thing to do for companies and for public entities. Every dollar invested in a living wage circulates back into local communities, creates a ripple effect, and uplifts us all. I think that the living wage is not really only just a policy or a concept, it's a moral imperative. And it should invite us to think about our values as a society and ask some hard questions. Who benefits from low wages? Who profits from a system that perpetuates inequality? And ultimately, what kind of world do we want to create for future generations? As advocates, leaders and citizens, we have a choice. We can choose to advocate for policies that uplift all workers. And we can choose to stand in solidarity with those who've been marginalised and to fight against injustice and inequality. And I think that this book will serve as a powerful tool in that fight, a call to action. So to close, I invite you all to purchase a copy, to engage with the stories, and to join everybody in advocating further for the living wage, to be paid to all workers. The fight isn't over yet. Together, we can build a future where every worker is valued, every family can thrive, and community can flourish. So thank you for being here today, for caring about the cause, and for your commitment to a more equitable world. Thank you.
Born in the California redwoods, our next community speaker moved to Aotearoa New Zealand in 2000 to advance his career in agricultural science. He took up a junior role at Ag Research Grasslands, a Crown Research Institute, where he ran a number of successful research projects and went on to become a team leader. The move to New Zealand, Aotearoa, sparked his interest in civic matters through the discovery of an amazing natural environment and a genuine spectrum of political ideas and representation. Before standing for council, his contributions to the community include 6 years as chair of Forest and Bird Manawatū, a number of years chairing the City Environmental Trust with a focus on the urban environment. Long-time Green Party member and more recently a New Zealand citizen, in 2016 he decided to step up his commitment and stand for Palmerston North City Council. The campaign was motivated by a need for quality decision-making to support environmental and social well-being, focused on issues and opportunities such as the health of our Manawatū River and tackling climate change at a local level. Elected as Palmerston North City's first official Green councillor, he says he's enjoyed meeting people all over the place and working with a wide range of people in the community. Official duties include leading portfolios, environment, sustainability, active and public transport. Please welcome our second community speaker today, Green Party Palmerston North City Councillor, Brent Barrett.
Tēnā koutou katoa, and thank you, Dion, for that generous introduction. Before turning to Lyndy and the book launch, I do want to briefly comment on the living wage journey at Palmerston North City Council, and particularly to acknowledge Councillor Lorna Johnson, who you just heard from, and her ongoing work that secured that historic decision. Councillor Johnson was advocating for the living wage well before she got to council. She made it integral to her campaigns for election, and once she got to council, she persisted for 5 long years until that historic moment. Indeed. She said she wasn't going to blow her trumpet during this talk, so I said, well, I'm going to do it for you. Special thanks as well to the many people in the community, probably at Lorna's prompting, who brought that campaign to the chamber as well with that ever-winning political formula of persistent, positive pressure. Like all good campaigns, this one was strong, it was sustained, and yes, it was successful. It was a sunny afternoon, 9th of June, 2021. About 2:30 in the afternoon, as I remember it, that your council voted 12-3 to become a living wage employer. Thank you, Lorna. I want to acknowledge the many change makers that are with us in the room here this afternoon, those in your networks that are changing this city for the better, and your work in the past, in the present, and in the future. It is your collective work. It is the movements and achievements like the one that we are here to celebrate today in this new book that inspire and guide us onwards. Lyndy, welcome. Thank you. Truly wonderful that following your decades of dedication to workers and their cause and your pivotal role in the living wage movement, that you've taken the time and the energy to put it all down in writing for us to enjoy and be inspired by. The power to win. I really love that title. I really, really love that title. We quite often talk in really kind of loose terms about progress or evolution or change or opportunity. Those things are all nice, but win, I do like that word. In particularly in this case, within the living wage movement, where with the living wage, as was clearly articulated by Councillor Johnson, everyone wins. Everyone's better off, even those who have yet to realize it. Now, I do love a good read. Good to be here in the library today, and especially when it's a campaign story, has a social theme, and really looking forward to getting into the pages of this particular book. A very timely topic around fair wages, as Ben pointed out, ongoing challenges today still in this community. So I'm very much looking forward to that read. Notably, another outstanding contribution via Otago University Press, and want to acknowledge them and their work, and as we've already heard, available in our city's wondrous independent bookseller, Bruce Mackenzie's. I am quite drawn to the living wage movement as a demonstrated theory of change. I really look forward to hearing Lyndy's take on this, but perhaps the theory is this: forget the politicians, change society, change the game, and in due course those politicians will follow. Truly inspiring what has been achieved for workers via the living wage movement, with strong campaigns, strong campaigners focused on a single core issue, energized, determined, building and flexing the power of the collective. In closing, social progress happens when we see need, feel empathy, get organized, and keep on going. So to all the change makers in the room today, to all those in your networks, thank you. You are the essential ingredient in a changing society. I am stoked and humbled to be here in this moment. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, Lyndy. You and every living wage campaigner in Aotearoa have done a marvelous thing. It benefits each and every one of us. It benefits our city. It benefits our nation. So thank you. Ngā mihi nui. Tēnā koutou.
My goodness, we got some wonderful city councillors. Yep. Two of them here. Prior to his election as the Member of Parliament for the Palmerston North Electorate, 2020, our next speaker served 10 years on the Palmerston North City Council, appointed Deputy Mayor 2016, a role he relinquished upon his election to Parliament. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree with a triple major in history, political science and social policy, along with a graduate diploma in secondary school teaching from Massey University, and for many years taught at Freiburg High School as a history teacher. He says he is driven by his values of social justice, inclusiveness, fairness. Please welcome the Member of Parliament for Palmerston North from the Labour Party, Tangi Utikere.
Tēnā tātou katoa kia orana, koutou katoa. Thank you, Dion. I do want to just acknowledge those who have spoken before. Ben, I'm obviously aware of the work that you do currently, but also in your former role with the Manawatū Tenants Union as well. Bishop Cullinane, actually, first time I met Bishop Cullinane was as I think a 5-year-old when I sat on his knee at a wedding where I was the page boy. So it's always good to see you here, Peter. To our city councillors from Palmerston North City Council, can I both acknowledge Lorna and Brent? Obviously, my decade on council was unable to get this across the line, but certainly when I joined with the two of you, was very happy to lend my voice to that. Can I also acknowledge former MP for Palmerston North, Steve Mahari, who is also here today. And I was talking with Lorna, actually. She said, you're the last speaker before the book is launched. There won't be anything else to say. And I guess that's probably one of the issues when you sort of further down the running line there. But I do want to just say a few things. And firstly, I want to welcome and thank Lyndy. Welcome to Palmerston North, to Te Papai area. Thank you and congratulations on your book. We were talking earlier about the fact that our Labour Workplace Relations and Safety spokesperson, Camilla Bellich, was able to head to Auckland for the launch of the book up there, and I know she had a wonderful time. But Lyndy also reminded me that we actually have a mutual connection by way of the surrogate, and that is Ibrahim Omar, who, when Ibrahim entered Parliament along with me in 2020, we refer to each other as our parliamentary brother. And I know that in Ibrahim's maiden statement, he referred to you, Lyndy, as his Kiwi mum. So I know that he's very proud of the work that's been done, and I know that you're very proud of the work that he has done over his time here in New Zealand as well. Look, the living wage is, in essence, about an ability to meet the necessities of life. When we think about what it's all provided for, in a nutshell, that's it. It's about making sure that you pay someone, not a minimum wage, but a wage in which they can live. And, you know, Lorna talks about the fact that we all know what the living wage concept is about here in this community. There was a time when the living wage was a foreign concept. Sadly, it is still foreign to some employers, but the fact that there has been so much work in this space, and the fact that most people, I think, in this community know what a living wage is about, is a huge testament to the work that you and others have undertaken, not just here in this community, but all around the community, because we do know that paying a living wage is voluntary, but we all know that it is absolutely the right thing to do. It is about lifting working people out of a state of poverty, out of a state of inequality, and allowing for dignity to exist. This book, as I understand it, is a collection of individual stories as well. And when I was sort of reflecting on that, and the fact that when we talk about the living wage, who that impacts the most, it impacts women. It impacts Māori members of our community. It impacts Pacifica members of our community. It impacts new migrants, refugees, and it impacts young people, and it impacts other people as well. But when we reflect about what actually makes Te Papaioia so special and different, those are the very dynamics that run true here in our community. So having a living wage is absolutely the right thing to do throughout Aotearoa New Zealand, but it's absolutely the right thing to do here in Te Papaioia. I'll just close on the point around individual stories. I was reflecting recently on fair pay agreements, actually something that Ibrahim himself was a key leader around. And one of the joys that I had in the last term of government as the Chief Whip was casting all of the parties' votes in support of that legislation and looking up into the public gallery and seeing people cry because of what it would mean for them. Now, sadly, that was stripped away within the first 100 days, and there's a lot more to come. So now, more than ever, we need to be strong, resolute and collective around things like the living wage, around workers' rights, around protections in the workplace. And so I do hope that people will buy lots of books today, that they will read it, they will share it, and that will serve as a word or a collective form of words of encouragement for others. So, Lyndy, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for coming here. We look forward to hearing what you have to say. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia orana, koutou katoa.
Before I move on, I'm just going to give a big shout out to Beck Coogan, who happened to, 1 year ago exactly tomorrow, we had a big national strike with the warehouse. We had a picket outside the warehouse, and we needed to create a banner very quickly because we were going for the living wage. And there's the banner she's created, all in a couple of hours. So that was really great. Lyndy McIntyre grew up in the 1950s and 60s, a time of relative prosperity in Aotearoa New Zealand. In the 1970s, she became increasingly socially aware and was a union delegate in the printing industry right through the 1980s. By the 1990s, she was working for many unions where she met a whole lot of low-paid workers ranging from cleaners to security guards, caregivers to hospitality workers, and more. Lyndy says, after the Employment Contracts Act in 1991, when wages started to spiral down, workers were increasingly saying they could not live on the minimum wage. And so began a long career as a unionist. I won't mention all the unions, there's many unions there. Started with the Northern Hotel and Hospital Workers Union, moved into Service and Food Workers Union, ETU. There are many unions she was involved in as a campaign person or the communications person. In 2015, she became one of 2 paid community organisers in living wage movement Aotearoa New Zealand, retiring in 2020 to write this book. 4 years later, yes, 4 years it took to write this book. We are welcoming her to the Manawatū book launching pad. The book launching pad as the author of The Power to Win, Living Wage Movement in Aotearoa New Zealand. A big palmy welcome to Lyndy McIntyre.
Tēnā koutou katoa. E mihi ana ki te kaikarakia, Jon. E mihi ana ki ngā tangata whenua rangatani o Manawatū. Mihi ana ki ngā rangatira, Tangi, Lorna, Brent, Steve. E mihi ana kia Dion, Jenny, all the speakers we've heard today, tēnā koutou katoa. No kotorana no ingarangi o kutipuna, hei tangata tiriti ahau, ko Lyndy McIntyre ahau. No reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Well, it's just fabulous to be here in the mighty Manawatū. As somebody said earlier, I'm essentially from the Wellington region and I live on the Kapiti coast. But I do have some ties to this place, even though coming up here with John Ryle today, I couldn't really remember how to get here. In 1991 and through into 1992, there was a bit of a shortage in the Service and Food Workers Union office, and I was fortunate enough to do an organising stint over that time. I was put up for a few days a week, well, a couple of nights a week and a few days' work. I was put up at the Cleaners Union Batch at Foxton Beach. It was my little slice of heaven, down by the estuary and not far from the sea. But 1991, it wasn't a very heavenly time for the workers that we were representing and the other unions, like First and all other unions, immediately after the Employment Contracts Act. So, thinking back then to around that time, to 1991, as I jumped in my car and was out visiting sites. I was an organiser in pubs and clubs, Cosy clubs, Cobb and Co, various pubs around here, Fielding and further afield. Workers were telling us that they were really struggling, really unable to get by on very low wages, unable to pay the bills, the kind of thing that Lorna was talking about earlier, unable to keep their heads above water and feeling powerless. Because for some of us who've, and you know, from what Dion said and others, I've been around for a long time and some of us in this room have been, and for some of us, the passage of the Employment Contracts Act in 1991 was a turning point. So from that time on, for many workers, it was a time of losing the protections of union membership and the national awards. It was a time of losing power, of losing the power to win decent wages. And so it was against that backdrop that for the next 35 years, unions, workers in their unions and our friends across civil society were intent on a mission to build back power, to win back power. And all of us, those of you organising in Woolworths at the moment and struggling in Unite, out there in hospitality, for Ben at Massey, we know that what we're about is trying, well, not just trying, we're committed to building back the power that's needed for workers to lead decent lives and to, as Peter was talking about earlier, to participate in society. And so that struggle to build back the power to win, has been going on for 35 years. And around 2011, our union, the Service and Food Workers Union, reached out to other unions and to those in faith groups and across the community to build a new alliance. So that's what led to the launch of the living wage movement in 2012, a bid to build back power, a bid to build back the power to win. And being here today, this is just great, and that banner, Beck, wherever you are, is that feeling here today is really fabulous. And it's the feeling that takes you back to that time in 2012 when we first launched the living wage movement, first of all in Auckland. It was just such a joyful time of hope and a feeling of power of all the diverse groups that came together to launch the living wage movement. And it takes me back, being in this room as well, to the early days of starting the first living wage campaigns. And those campaigns have won the living wage, have as a direct outcome, have lifted the wages of many, many thousands of workers in large corporates, across the banking sector, in local and central government, and in the small to medium businesses and NGOs who've actually led the way, who are actually the most progressive employers who first came on to the living wage movement. And thinking back about reconnecting with that message of hope that's been so clearly brought out by the speakers today, it just makes me think, well, today, when workers are increasingly under attack and our civil society is increasingly under attack, the pitiful increase in the minimum wage, the repeal of the fair pay agreements, the return of 90-day trials, it just goes on and on, as Tangi was just saying. There's the struggles that we've heard about for workers today, the living wage movement, and building alliance with others out there who share the same values that we have is more important than ever. So it's more important than ever to reach out across civil society, to reach out. I've got a union background, but it's more important than ever to reach out to our friends in faith groups, our friends in community organisations, in student associations, refugee advocacy groups, all the groups, Māori Women's Welfare League, they're the groups that make up the living wage movement, who've joined our movement because they care about low wages and they care about workers. So that launched 12 years ago was a celebration of workers and their unions, but also a celebration of the power of civil society. Power to Win is the story of that celebration. It's a book about hope. It's a book about winning. It is about power and about winning. It's about the story of how to build power together and why that results in us being able to win campaigns but through that people power, because together we're stronger. So Power to Win is the story of those campaigns. It's the story of how the living wage movement was built. It's a story about changing the way we talk about wages from what's the lowest an employer can legally pay, get away with, to what do workers and their whānau need to lead decent lives. For anybody who's ever stood up for the living wage and for workers to have decent wages, this is your story. And Sue Bradford says on the back of the book, that's a story that needs to be told. Well, I never dreamed I'd write a book. But when I was asked just over 4 years ago, about 4.5 years ago, when I was asked to document the story of the living wage movement, I said yes, because it is a story that needs to be told. It's an important story, and it's a story that's part of our labour and social history. So I hope Power to Win will be read by those who want to make a difference. And I hope that the stories that are in the book inspire people to want to make a difference and help us to be able to make a difference. Power to Win is a tribute to all people who want to make a difference. First and foremost, it's a tribute to workers. There are workers on every page of the book, and that is Power to Win is the story of workers. It's dedicated to one worker, Rebecca Naiakuong-Kuach, and whose stories of courage are present in the book, who stood up for the living wage as a South Sudanese refugee, as a single mother of 5 children, as a cleaner at Victoria University, because yes, and Ben knows this only too well, those university campaigns are about the cleaners too. And there are over 80 cleaners at Victoria University in Wellington. We are campaigning for them to win the living wage with the help of TEU, the mighty TEU, and others across civil society in Wellington. And we're going to win that campaign, just like the campaign will be won in Massey. So it's also a tribute, the book, to all the activists, all the leaders, and we're lucky today. We've got John Ryle with us. There's one chapter called The Idea, because this is a book about an idea that John had and contributed to all of us, and that's how the living wage movement got started. So I just want to thank you all for coming today. I particularly want to thank Dion and Unions Manawatū. Dion has done an amazing job, so thank you. And Gina, so thank you to all the speakers who were fantastic, and the wonderful Brazen Hussies, really amazing, to Jenny and the library staff, and to Bruce Mackenzie Books. Obviously, reiterate the thank you to the publisher Otago University Press for taking on the living wage story, which I can assure you not all publishers would do. But I also want to acknowledge the printer of my book, a fully accredited, signed up living wage business, a fully unionised business, and 100% New Zealand owned printer. And that's Pivotal Print in Wellington, if you're looking for a printer. So thank you to all of you. Kia kaha, kia manua nui, kia tau te rangi Māori e. Thank you.
Just to start our second bracket, we've got a number that John Maynard adapted for the Living Wage group. We're going to knock on your door, so it's using that theme with the reworked reworked lyrics for our particular theme and celebration today.
We're gonna knock on your door, ring on your bell, tap on your window too. If you don't come out today with the living wage, we're gonna knock and ring and tap until you do. We're here to fight for the living wage. No use thinking that we'll go away. Every day we're building up support while you're in there and we're out here. We're gonna knock on your door, ring on your bell, tap on your window too. If you don't come out today with the living wage, we're gonna knock and ring and tap until you do. We're gonna knock and ring and tap and knock and ring and tap and knock and ring and tap and knock and ring until you do.
Right, so our last song is Step by Step by Sweet Honey in the Rock, and this is an old favourite of ours. And I think it's through us that the trade union movement have learnt it and sung it, isn't it, Dion? He's not listening. I'm just saying, we sang this, we were there a long time ago. It's one of our favourites, and I think that's, yeah. Well, we taught it to you, Dion.
That's right, we taught it to
I mean,
you.
step by step, sorry, step by step.
Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones to form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. Step by step the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones to form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. Step by step the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones to form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none.
And Lyndy came across before and she said, we need to wind up, we need to finish up, because she feels that you're getting a bit restless. Somebody might start to head away, but we've got a book to sell over here. So just the final acknowledgements. Big thank you to Unions Manawatū, Otago University Press, Bruce Mackenzie Bookshop, Palmerston City Library, Manawatū People's Radio, Living Wage Aotearoa New Zealand, Lyndy McIntyre, all our speakers today. And one final thing, no one gets away, everyone knows that, without my signature tune. It goes back to the 1991, as Lyndy mentioned, 1991. It was a terrible time for unions. The Employment Contracts Act came in, which wiped all industry and occupational bargaining. The Reserve Bank Act was put in to drive down inflation to 3%. Unfortunately, it created a hell of a lot of unemployment in this country as well. And on top of that, the dreaded benefit cuts. People had their benefits slashed. And it was a terrible, terrible time for... But in the middle of that, there was many workers' unemployed rights centres created to struggle, to fight back. And this is what the living wage is too about, to fight back. So the 1990s, those 9 years, were pretty bad. And we're heading into that sort of thing now. We've got to put a stop to that. We've got to struggle, we've got to fight back. So this song came out of 1991, the Wellington Unemployed Workers' Rights Centre. People of Aotearoa, make a stand and fight on forever. Unite all our children, make it seem hopeful for them. Teach them to love one another. Tell them we will recover. Tell them that we are the ones who'll fight on to the end. Te hei moriora, e na iwi Aotearoa, kia kaha, kia mana, kia mo. Kia kaha, kia mana, kia mo. Kia kaha, book for sale. Refreshments down the back.